Good morning. My name is Barbara, and I'm honored to serve as the lay presence in the pulpit this morning. Please join me in saying our chalice lighting words while Reverend Wooden lights our chalice for us. We kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love, which calls us to work for justice.
Go ahead, Katie.
Good morning, VUU. I'm Katie Seifert, the Director of Music Ministries, and I come to you online this morning. My family and I are recovering from having COVID-19, and due to the amount of breakthrough infections that seem to be currently happening, I'm keeping my distance to be extra cautious not to spread this virus in our precious community. I have experienced some dark days in my family's infection, especially due to our 14-month-old Gavin, who seemed to struggle with it the most. But the light has come, as the sun always does, and my heart is full of gratitude that we are blessed to be recovering. Coming off of this experience, this new year feels especially potent and needing to remember the power of love, hope, and joy, because there is always more love somewhere. Helen Keller said, "Resolve to keep happy, and your joy and you shall form an invincible host against all difficulties." So as we say goodbye to last year and hello to this year, let's reach for gratitude and find new strength, new thoughts, and new actions that allow us to show up as better versions of ourselves, to better serve our community. May love guide us all in 2022. Let's join in the words of our opening hymn, which is number 131 in our gray hymnal, "Love Will Guide Us." If you are online with me, feel free to sing along to the words. And if you are in the sanctuary, please hum along, and we will know you are joining in mind and in heart, that love will guide us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Rocking this purple mask, don't want to take it off, hey? That was compliments of Jim and Linda Horton, thank you so much. If you have to wear a mask, it might as well be purple. That's what I'm saying, everyone. Well, Happy New Year, and welcome to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation and this sacred space that we're just getting to know again. Moving our elbows, pushing things out. So let this time together be a way to let go of barriers and walls, and instead to honor diversity in all its forms, and to welcome everyone without judgment and with curiosity and compassion. Wherever you are on your life's journey, we bid you welcome. And we're always delighted to welcome guests among us. And while it's entirely voluntary, if anyone is visiting with us today, if you wouldn't mind standing so that we can welcome you now and after the service, we would love that. Is anyone here visiting willing to stand? Not surprising, no one is. I mean, it's kind of a weird time to be church shopping in the middle of a pandemic. At any rate, we invite you to visit us again. If you're online, please don't hesitate to reach out to us so that we can get to know you. And if the service brings up things for you and you would like someone to talk to you about it, we have a pastoral care associate available who will be able to speak with you privately, either here in person or online in a private chat room. Our pastoral care associate here in person today is Dan Schulte. Is Dan here? At any rate, Dan will be waiting at the front of this sanctuary on your right at the end of the service, and there's a private room right in the back. And if you're viewing online, all you have to do is send a notice in chat, and you'll be able to be in a private room with Melissa Bush, who will be on Zoom immediately following our service. Also, our lay pastoral care associates are available during the week to assist you through trying times, so don't hesitate to reach out to them. There's an email specifically for pastoral care, and it is showing on screen. It's pastoralcare@vuu.org. And also for those of you on the here in the sanctuary, there is a quiet room that's soundproofed, and so if anybody needs a time out, don't hesitate to use that room when someone is putting it to good use right now and showing us how it's done. So thank you for that. Now, in our pulpit today is our interim minister, the Reverend Dr. Fred Wooden, and the title of his sermon is Not Elton John, about which he says, sometimes it's easier to leave you guessing. So I'm guessing. I'm looking forward to it. But I'll tell you, since I read that, I've had Elton John's second album that was released in November of 1971. I know that because it was the second album I bought as a teenager. Anyway, it's Madman Across the Water, and I highly recommend that you all listen to it over and over again, like I've been doing the last 3 days, like a teenager. Anyway, thanks for that, down memory lane. So our Touchstones theme for this month is renewal. And I can't think of a better topic for this new year. We're all exhausted and in need of comfort and normal, even though our normal is a moving target. Personally, I've stopped engaging with the daily news stream. I just can't take it anymore. So I did not even know that there was a big convention a couple weeks ago where Mr. Rittenhouse came and was elevated to celebrity status. I was just blissfully unaware until someone told me a week later, but then it was over and poof, I didn't have to worry about it. Now, we've been living on an edge like that coming on 2 years now, and that's a long time, and we can't do it endlessly and without respite. This new year, intentionally taking time to repair our bodies, our minds, and souls can give us the motivation and capacity that's necessary to continue our work repairing the world. I'm quite sure in the coming days, we'll be bombarded with advice for how to go on the best diet, how to do the quickest exercise routine so that you can lose tons of weight, get those abs, yada, yada. And that in itself is stressful. But picking something intentionally that allows you that spiritual break is what I think the best thing to do. So instead of making a resolution, go into the renewal mode and see how switching it up might help you. And how you do renewal is personal, and it seems to me important, perhaps now more than ever before. And as Unitarian Universalists, we're not confined or limited to specific spiritual practices, and we can explore the myriad of ways to practice renewal. We can just pick something and then do it. And the Touchstones Journal this month, which is available on our website in the Resources tab, really has some great ideas for how to incorporate renewal. And they have a daily guide. I mean, they have a lot of lists, but it's okay because they're not bad lists. A Unitarian Universalist minister, the Reverend Tom Owen Toll, writes in his book, Theology Ablaze, that if we ignore our spirit or ravage our body, enslave our heart, or vacate our mind, avoid our conscience, or forfeit our soul, we're literally abusing the singular gift of creation that is you, that is I. No uniform self-care program will work for everyone. We're all different, and disciplines that succeed for you won't necessarily bring me growth. The paths toward self-nourishment are countless. We're beckoned to nourish on a daily basis the entirety of our beings, body, spirit, heart, mind, soul, and conscience, end quote. Your being here today is such a practice of self-nourishment. As Unitarian Universalist minister Jacob Trapp wrote, "Let this house be quiet. Let our minds be quiet. Let the quietness of the hills, the quietness of deep waters, be also in us, so quiet that the noise of passing events and present anxieties of random recollections and wandering thoughts is stilled, so quiet that the stillness is like music, so quiet that we feel the very being which is the life of us all, so quiet that we are renewed. We feel at one with all others, at home in a tabernacle of stillness, so quiet that we let the ripples of this pool of quietness and healing pass through us and into the world." And to end, I quote from the author Neil Gaiman, who wrote, "May your coming year be filled with magic and dreams and good madness. I hope you read some fine books and kiss someone who thinks you're wonderful. And don't forget to make some art. Write or draw or build or sing or live as only you can. And I hope somewhere in the next year you surprise yourself with a little awkward dancing. Blessed be."
Well, I don't know about you, but the last 2 or 3 weeks of the year, my email feed was bombarded with please give money impositions from all sorts of politicians, good guy organizations, and each one of them I just kept swiping left, because I was in no mood to be arm twisted to give money. So why am I telling you this during the offering? Because I know how you feel. And I don't want you to swipe left right now. Instead, I want you to remember the videos we saw of the chalice ringers and of our choir. And if you noticed two things, you'll understand why the offering matters. In the chalice ringers video, two people each appeared twice. They were playing different notes. So they were recorded twice. So they were actually a smaller group making a bigger noise. When you give, you amplify your presence. You do more than you realize. Your gift is not materially doubled, but your impact is twice as great, at least. That's the first observation. So when you give to this church, you are making a loud statement to the world. Conversely, in the other video, you saw lots of faces, including some of our own. Sometimes when you sing in a choir, you're joined by everyone in the world. And when you sing a song that everyone is singing, it can be heard by everyone in the world because others are singing along. Did you see Jim Nielsen's face there? Did you see other faces but there were other voices there. I saw Rebecca's face. But there were other faces from other choirs. And the player on the piano was playing from Brooklyn, New York. I know because he's the music director in a church I used to serve. So your individual voices were amplified by being in a choir larger than your own. Two reasons to give: to double your impact and multiply your sound. That's why we give to any organization. Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation, what I would also call Valley Unitarian Universalist Community, amplifies our personal hopes for a just, wise, and loving world. No, we will not see it in our lifetime, but we will get a little closer because VUU was here. You make that possible, and through you, we can do more. Click, text, email, phone call, write a letter, drop by. If you got a passenger pigeon or something like that, let us know. We'll come and collect it. But your presence through your money doubles your impact and multiplies your good. With that in mind, I'll invite Jim, singer extraordinaire, to also drain your pockets of your goodwill. As they're passing, I'll invite, is Katie going to introduce our centering time? Why don't we get her to start doing that while we take the collection?
Sure. As Fred said, now is our time for centering. And I feel inspired by Barbara's wonderful and powerful welcome to carve out some quiet for ourselves. We do live in a time of so much noise, and that quiet can be very healing, very powerful. So let's take a moment to perhaps close your eyes, find a soft gaze, and come in to your body. Feel your feet on the ground, your seat in your chair, and start to feel the heartbeat within yourself. As you start to feel your breath and your heartbeat, let the noise fade away. Whatever thoughts come up, may they float on by. and allow yourself this healing moment of quiet. Go ahead and take one deep breath. You can open your eyes, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, and be open to this moment of centering where we have music and we have prayer. This song next is a song that my husband Andrew and I wrote when we were in a crossroad in our marriage. In fact, we were at a moment where we had to let the marriage we had created die and come to a place of separation, of space, so that we could intentionally create a new chapter and a new marriage. This song always comes to mind every New Year's for us, because New Year's is that reflection of death and rebirth, letting the old go and welcoming in the new. I hope that this song can inspire you, inspire us to set new intentions that align with our values and connect with our souls so that we can write a new chapter for this new year. And may we seize the gift of life in every breath, every moment of quiet, and the moments of madness that we have. This is next chapter.
I found myself and I won't sacrifice
Who I am beneath it all.
I take a step and go and push myself.
Open my mind, it'll open doors. Don't be afraid. The journey's there to make me strong. To have faith. There's a lot to find and less to see. This is my next chapter, another me to be. Let love replace my fears. This is my prayer to seize the day. This is my song to die within my
sun will shine.
It's there to teach, and it's there to grow. Don't be ordinary. I need the ground to walk this road. To be on fire, shed the old and light the new. This is my next chapter, another me to be. Let love replace my fears. This is my prayer to receive my grace. This is my song to live within my love. This is my prayer to seize the day. This is my song to dive within my soul. My soul is free. My soul is free. My soul is free. My soul is free.
We've heard a lot about quiet. Barbara's remarks summoned a lot of images, as Katie observed. One of which came to me comes from Annie Dillard, from one of her wonderful essays in Teaching a Stone to Talk, in which she says, silence is nature's one remark, the only chip off that old mute and immutable block. And yet, most summers when I last served a congregation, when I was still in town, I would go to church, but I would not go to my own church. I would go to different churches. And I mean different churches. I went and I worshiped with the Assemblies of God and the Mormons and the evangelicals and anyone as different from my religion as I could get a hold of. Partly because I needed to be remembered that I don't sit at the center of the universe. And one of the things I discovered is that we are very quiet compared to a whole lot of churches. I went to several good Pentecostal churches, and you walk in and a wall of sound greets you, and it goes on for 10, 15, 20 minutes. There is not a moment of silence in a Pentecostal church. And I felt a little overwhelmed. I wanted my quiet, but I was being challenged to understand that prayer and even contemplation can exist anywhere. And that often these churches were filled with people who were poor and struggling. When they testified, they said, my son just came back from jail today, and there would be a shout of gratitude. I got $20 that I found on the street, and another shout of gratitude go up. And I thought, to what extent is my quiet a privilege, a luxury, something that I can have that perhaps others cannot? Which is not to say Barbara was wrong or that Annie Dillard was wrong, but that prayer can be both loud and soft, silent and exuberant. Our prayer today, mine, is that we have ears to hear all the prayers. those that can only be heard in the silence, otherwise drowned out by the dailiness of life, driven off by having to go to work or clean the house or pay the bills or be realistic. We need the quiet prayers that are only audible when we shut up and listen. We need the murmuring prayers of that person whose life is in peril, be it illness or poverty, a marriage struggling, a parent dying, whose prayers often muttered just to get through the moment. Help us to have ears to hear the shout of anger that one has been harmed or hurt or left behind, of injustice done, of pain. We asked for the grace to hear the exuberant song that is gratitude even for found money on a sidewalk, that this gift is as great as any that we could get. We ask for the ear that can hear the sound of rain, of thunder, knowing that, as Frederick Douglass said, we cannot wish for the nourishing rains and not live with the thunder that comes with them. And so our prayer is that we hear them all, from that which has no word to that which contains all words. For in the ultimate song and silence, outrage and outcast, hope and fear are all true prayers when uttered from the heart. So may it be, and amen.
May this be a year of love and kindness.
May strangers come to be friends.
May truth and compassion always guide us. Amen.
May this be a year of hope and healing
For all of those in need,
May all of our deeds be a blessing.
Amen.
A new year, a good year, a chance to start all over. A new year, a sweet year, a chance to bring us closer.
May this be a year of selfless giving.
May this be a year of peace.
And may we forgive and be forgiven. Amen.
A new year, a good year, a chance to start all over. A new year,
sweet year, a chance to bring us closer. A new year, a good year, a chance to start all over. A sweet year, a chance to bring us closer to the ones we love. A world that we can be proud of.
Long as there are stars above.
There comes a new year.
That is a seriously cool video. Amen on that. Or if I were in synagogue, I'd say Yasher Koach, which means may you grow in strength, which is what you say when someone does a good deed. Yasher Koach. I know that because I spend my spiritual life for myself in a synagogue back in Grand Rapids. And so while I am not Jewish, let me underline that. I am not Jewish. I am not a Jew. I'm a fellow traveler. And so it was a delight. I took pride, or shall we say in Yiddish, I kwelt, I shep nachas. I did the pleasure of watching my fellow travelers in the way of Torah. Wow, that was great. And I also want to thank Katie and Andrew for their song, which invited us into their lives. Wow, good way to start the year. Great way to start the year. So, just for your information, you're going to understand my title in about 15 minutes. But I need to get there first. I'm going to start with Winston Hugh Auden, W.H. Auden. His long poem written during the Second World War, for the time being, it's called a Christmas Oratorio. And he creates an elaborate scenario in which all the characters in the Christmas story are given extra voices and time. It's very long, but near the very end, after it's just when it's about to be over, he said, well, so that's that. And doesn't it feel that way after Christmas Day? So that's that. The last gasp of Yuletide will give up the ghost this week on January 6th, what is called 12th night. Today, very few people realize that Yuletide is a season that runs from the first Sunday in Advent through to 12th night. More than a month. I think it's a pity that we don't acknowledge this. No, we're not practicing Christians, this idea of doing something over a longer period of time. I firmly believe that we should live more by seasons and less by days. It's an ancient practice, predating times like ours, when life varied less from day to day, and whether it was Monday or Tuesday really didn't matter. What mattered was the moon and the sun, not the clock or the computer. When we had young children, we spread our observance of Yuletide through the season, starting with an Advent calendar filled with little bits of candy, so that every day had a little something that made it different. On Christmas Day, they found packages to open, but also numbered packages for each day through the 12 days, which they would only open on that day. It sounds extravagant. It wasn't. The gifts got more and more modest, and the pleasure comes in knowing there was something every day so that the last day made it kind of official. I think the same is true of Yuletide itself. For all of us, there are many smaller gifts that we sometimes don't appreciate because we're so pointed toward Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. The Advent wreath, which is a staple in Christian households, but is pagan in its origin. It's 4 candles that should be lit each Sunday. Somewhere along the line, Hanukkah arrives, and while it has nothing to do with Christmas, it has very much to do with the onset of winter, coming always very close to the winter solstice. Of course, that means lighting candles in the menorah, which, by the way, you do not have to be a Jew to do. And in fact, you are encouraged all to get one and light one and put it in your window. You may not know the story of the Montana community that responded to an act of anti-Semitism by having every member of the community put a menorah in its window so that you would know that everyone in town was Jewish, at least for Hanukkah. But it's not just the menorah and the candles. There are dreidels to be spun. There is gelt to be eaten. And of course, potato pancakes. Who could not love a latke during the coldest time of the year? And in our memory, going to Brooklyn Borough Hall, which was the old city hall, and watching the rabbi from the local Orthodox synagogue get in a cherry picker and be lifted up to light the great menorah in the middle of town, and then to eat one of the already cold latkes that were being handed out by the Lubavitcher community. That was part of Yuletide for us. Then there's the festooning. What we did in my last church, we called it the hanging of the greens. And morbid fellow that I was, I could not help but imagine a whole family that was condemned to swing by their necks. But that's my bizarre sense of humor. The crowding of religious and secular elements within the orbit of Yuletide is part of the season. And each is deserving of its own moment of joy, whether it's St. Lucia's Day, if you have Swedish ancestors, or don't. Whether it's St. Nicholas Day, which some clergy observe when they give presents to their children, being so busy on Christmas Eve. The pleasure in each of these is the pleasure of Christmas itself. But that is only possible for those who observe this season, pacing themselves, husbanding energy from day to day to savor it all in its moment and not hasten to the hurried outcome of Christmas morning. That's why when Auden says, "So that's that," we feel a certain exhaustion. And he talks about taking down the tree and having it burnt and putting everything away for the year. And he remembers in his poem that the kitchen table is real because I scrub it. That sense of letdown that seems to come if you put everything on that one day. But except for that fact that I mentioned earlier, it isn't over. There is still Epiphany. So I want you to give it a few more days. Because actually the Feast of Epiphany, which comes up on the 6th, this Thursday if I'm not mistaken, is a significant day spiritually for us, not just for others who observe it formally. More important, am I suggesting? Perhaps. Religiously, Epiphany is more important than Christmas. Long ago, the entire nativity sequence was celebrated on that whole day, January 6th, as it is among the Eastern Orthodox even now. Epiphany for Roman Catholics marks the arrival of the 3 Magi. They show up after the baby is born, not that single day. Don't you feel bad for Mary thinking that the day she gives birth, there are animals and shepherds and kings all showing up? Who could be meaner to the mother of a newborn than that? But 1,500 years ago, it really was the whole shooting match. Birth, shepherds, magi, presentation in the temple. You forgot about that part, didn't you? Right up to his confounding the experts in the temple later as a child, right up to when he was baptized and performed his first miracle at Cana. It all was observed on January 6th. And Epiphany was not just the end of Yuletide, it was the beginning of a whole other season called Epiphany, which lasts until when? Ash Wednesday. Anyone here know when Ash Wednesday is this year? I do, March 2nd. I like seasons. Seasons. Time to spread the Spirit out, to allow it to sink in. It encompasses not just a season, but a year, and it is like the season of winter or spring or summer, a time of its own wealth and value. But Epiphany season means more than a mere summary of Jesus' early life. The gift, the visit of the Magi, the baptism are all special in one respect. In the Christian tradition, they are manifestations of Jesus' messiahship. And that's what Epiphany means, manifestation, to show forth. Like all religious words, it's not a religious word. It's an old, typical word that was just dressed up by religion later. An epiphany means a moment that reveals something heretofore hidden, or at least unnoticed. That isn't limited to religious things. How many of you have gone searching for your keys only to find them in a spot that you were looking at least once before? That's an epiphany too. It is to show forth, to make it visible. We've all had moments when we suddenly understood something that eluded us before. I had one years ago. I remember it to this day because it was the moment I grasped the subjunctive mood in Greek. It had been a mystery to me for weeks. What is this subjunctive mood? And suddenly, as if someone drew a curtain aside, aha, now I understand. A little click, a little light, and it fell into place. And my experience is not unique to me. We've all had a moment when we understood something that had been previously a mystery or puzzling, or it became intelligible. It's an inner feeling that feels like fitting a piece into a jigsaw puzzle, a piece you've been holding for hours, looking for that spot where it fit. And then when you see it, it is so obvious you are stunned you didn't see it before. That's what an epiphany is. You realize a fact, a truth that was always present, but you had not seen it before. And I got to tell you, those are the greatest experiences you can have in your head. Yes, there are other great experiences, but when the light goes on in a closet that has been dark, it's a hallelujah. It's a praise Jesus. It's whatever you want to say. And suddenly, my prayer makes sense. Because for millions of people, that's the moment they come to church to have, or to remember, or to prize, a moment of awareness that was hard to find. It is what we call a religious experience. Of course, I have to add that such moments don't generally happen in church. They're not even limited to religion. There are epiphanies everywhere, like mine, understanding a foreign language. They can transform our lives, or simply illuminate one of those little crannies in life. James Joyce, the eccentric Irish author, used the term of epiphany to describe all revelations into life. I'm quoting now. It is the moment in which the soul of the commonest object seems to us radiant and may be manifested through any chance word or gesture. Have you had that moment when a common object became radiant? That's an epiphany. They're quite wonderful, but rare. So we savor the moments because they're like works of art or an act of love, a great vista or a tender touch. They came through the skin of every day and found our heart. Think of a moment like that for you. They're not many. They're not hard to find. So it can be some time between epiphanies. And therein is the dilemma I want to lift up for us and for me. Epiphanies are really nice. We would love to have them all the time, but most of life is not an epiphany. We are basically getting from day to day through habit and belief, and it works. It has to work, because if we had to make every decision based on an epiphany, we would get nowhere very fast. So we don't need epiphanies, really, to buy the eggs or make the bed or read the paper or pay the bills. But everyone wants to know how those other moments I've just described fit into that bigger thing we call life. Or is it just moments like that? Is it just stuff and then it's over? We hunger for meaning, purpose, understanding, inner peace, outer joy. We crave those epiphanies. Would you believe it? People even come to church hoping to have one. And it does happen, but not every week. Epiphanies are the exception, even in church. Reality follows us into the temple every day. This is one of the hardest lessons to teach. Religion is just as ordinary as the rest of your life. It is said that a philosopher is someone looking for a black cat in a dark room, and a theologian is the same but claims to have caught the cat. The greatest peril to religion is when it thinks that it is absolutely clear about everything. I know I'm living in a dark room and that the black cat rarely speaks up. And an epiphany is that moment when that black cat goes up against your shin and you didn't know it and you get its touch and then it moves on again. Fundamentalism in all its faiths presumes not only to have the cat, but to have given it a name and that it comes when called. They find that in the surety of their own knowledge, as though somehow they have mistaken darkness for light. And we have all seen the evident evil perpetrated in people who possess perfect knowledge. However much we want to know the truth, we also know that the absolute and total truth is truly beyond us. It is beyond our individual lives. It is even beyond our collective spiritual lives. Like the Apostle Paul, we see at best in a glass darkly. As disappointing as it is, truth does not come to us in one dramatic epiphany, shedding perpetual light on all things. Epiphanies are those momentary flashes. And if you've ever been in a dark place like a forest or a room, when the power goes out, you strike a match, and for a moment you can see further, but you can't see furthest, and you won't see forever because the match goes out. And so we have to remember where we are when the light goes on and move on in the dark with just that much knowledge. Epiphanies are a few flashes by which we live our lives with much darkness between them. I sound rather gloomy, but in fact I'm not. In some ways that's like pitying the blind. Those who've never seen say, I don't miss anything. I know the world quite well, and they're right. The same is true for us in truth. In the ultimate scheme, we are blind as bats, but like bats, we can do well enough, notwithstanding. The problem comes when we pretend that there is nothing more beyond our benighted eyes, that we are not in fact blind. At that point, we do become truly blind to our blindness. And even the occasional flashes cease because we forget that our eyes are now closed, not merely in the dark. Yes, epiphany means revelation. My message today is to cherish your epiphanies. They are glorious and beautiful, but they are few. Yet as precious as they are not the purpose of life itself. The feeling is secondary. In the knowledge gained, the wisdom granted, that is what matters. And that knowledge, that wisdom is your candle. your flame to light the way, yes, for yourself, but also for others. And that's where the title of my sermon comes in, because one of my favorite books was when I was a young man, was the book by T.H. White called The Once and Future King, the retelling of the Arthur legend. It's divided into 4 parts or books, and the last of which is called A Candle in the Wind. And if I'd named my sermon that, you would have thought of the Elton John song and think I was talking about Princess Diana. I am not talking about that. I am talking about T.H. White's book, not Elton John. In the book, which predates Elton John, King Arthur, at the end of it, is an aging and defeated king. His dream has been torn apart. And he commands a young page named Tom on the eve of the battle to flee, to go away. Tom wants to stay and fight. But Arthur knows he will lose the battle. Mordred will win. He tells Tom the story of the Round Table and instructs Tom to take a horse and flee home to keep the dream alive. He even knights him, Sir Tom, there on the eve of battle. Now I quote directly, and if I get emotional, it's because it's worth it. "Do you think you could do that, Thomas, to please the king?" said Arthur. "I would do anything for King Arthur." "That's a brave fellow. Will you promise to be careful of yourself afterward? Will you try to remember you are a kind of vessel to carry on the idea?" "Thomas, my idea of those nights was a sort of candle, like the ones here. I've carried it for many years with a hand to shield it from the wind. It has flickered often. I'm giving you the candle now. You won't let it go out. It will burn, sire. Will you say to them, sire? Will you say to them in Warwickshire, early, he were a wonderly fine candle?" "Aye, lad, that I will." Perhaps this is our task in life, to find some bit of wisdom that comes to you in the darkness of life, that piece of the puzzle that has its home, that understanding of something that was elusive and suddenly becomes clear, to carry that tiny flame sheltered from fear and hate to a new place. It's a hard job, especially these days when people are blowing hard to get all the lights out as fast as possible. It's easily thwarted. So we come to places like this, not just to seek the light, but to give it. That the small flame handed to us will keep going, week in and week out. Some days it feels downright impossible. We hover about the flame, protecting it from the wind and looking at it. But what can we do? It's our job to keep the candle lit. So it should be no surprise that now and again we might come up and ask someone, maybe the preacher, will you say to them, she were a wonderly fine candle? And we come to this place hoping someone will say, aye, lass, that I will. Aye, lad, that I will. It's your candle, friends. Keep it. Shelter it from the wind. And if you ask, I'll say, aye, lass, you were a wonderly fine candle. And that will be enough. That will be enough. And so may it be that we carry our candle a little further this week. Bring it back next week. We need it to do this. Our closing music, sung by our own Teakwoods mini choir, a hymn that is undisputably the most popular one in this congregation, is Blue Boat Home. Katie, can you lead us into it?
Sure. Just listening to your sermon, I thought, the New Year's, the seasons, the new awarenesses, new epiphanies, where moments of common objects become radiant. The day-to-day, the mysteries, the dark and the light, our light, all happen that we know on our beautiful blue boat home. As we sing our closing song together or hum it together, let's picture ourselves as beacons of light shining on our beautiful blue boat home.
Standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry and heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. My sail and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all with kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in a beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, reach the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Ms. Barbara Face, why don't you come on up here so we can go from my words to yours? Albert Schweitzer wrote, "At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. That's why each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. We come to be lit and to light others. And in the winters of life, we hold that candle against the wind and hope that spring will bring us to a new summer."
And now we'll say together are extinguishing the chalice words. Though we extinguish the chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. And at this time, for those of you attending on Zoom, feel free to stay for a breakout room. Just simply accept the invitation when it appears on your screen. Alternatively, you can decline that invitation and just stay in the main room where you'll be joined by Reverend Wooden. And also, if you'd like to speak with a pastoral care associate, Dan will be available up front at the end of this service. And anything else I need to say other than thank you so much for being here and Happy New Year. Oh, yes. That's what I should have said